I hate about money the most is when people use it to control others. When people use it as a leverage to get something from others, or when people use it to make other people compliant with something. And I could give you probably millions of examples of my own life of how this happened and how this is what shaped me doing certain things and not doing certain things. So if I were to give you several examples, when my dad used to use money or safety in the form of money to keep my mom obedient, compliant, doing everything that he wanted her to do, to a point that even when he was violent, and this was many times, she wouldn't leave him because of fear of not being able to make the money side of things work for her and for her children, right? And this probably is currently happening in many, many humanitarians' lives. Another example that probably many of the humanitarians are familiar with, where donors use money with certain conditions, with certain requirements, to make it also a control mechanism. To control who we can help, who we cannot help, how we can help, and how we cannot help. Or states using their contributions and money to decide which political agenda to promote and which political agenda should be promoted through the humanitarian work, and making the humanitarian work apolitical. Political, not apolitical. Right, so there are a lot of ways that we can probably see in our own lives and in the work life how money has been used to either control people's behaviors, control what agendas are promoted, control who gets the help and who doesn't. This is the part that I hate about money. Now that I was thinking, what is it on the receiving side of when we are dependent on money? When we feel we don't have other choices and this is the only way we can have the money, we can sustain ourselves, we can continue our lives. And when we become so fully existentially dependent on money that we need to give up our principles, we need to give up our true voices, we need to give up our integrity, we need to give up our freedom. This is another part of the money that I hate. When we use money as a way to solve all of our problems, and if we can't, then we're doomed and gloomed, and therefore we feel like the only way to keep having the money, to keep having the safety, because money oftentimes represents safety, stability. And we then become so addicted to that safety and stability from someone who's giving us the money. And we become the control subject of the person who's giving us the money. Right? You probably can relate to this in so many of your lives, and I have done this for most of my life as well, where I was worried that if I don't if I don't do the things that I'm asked to, if I don't comply with the things that I am supposed to, even though I don't agree with it, then I will be fired, or I will have a bad performance review, or I will not get the next assignment and keep doing the thing that I actually love doing. Right? So I was really looking at how money has been used to control, to leverage, to get people do the things that they wanted to do. And then I feel like I was always on the receiving end of that control. Right? I was on the receiving end of the control, meaning that other people try to control my life, my way of doing things based on the salary, based on my family life, where my mom gave me the role model of you have to continue complying and being obedient to the husband if you want the safety and security, if you want him to take care of you, right? This was the role model that I have received. So I was always on the receiving end of money control, power control being exercised on my life. Do you know what I mean? I hope that I'm able to explain, right? So, and this was also the same pattern at work, that I don't think that I was so much worried about the money side of things, even though of course we all need money to survive and to live. But the fact that I assume that if I don't comply and do the things the way that exactly the way that I'm asked to do, then I wouldn't have my safety and security. Do you see what I'm saying? So I was always on the receiving end of other people trying to control money and use money in some way, shape, or form to get me obeying and not saying the things that should have been said, not rocking the boat, not reporting the wrongdoings, not contradicting the decisions that shouldn't have been made. So I was on the receiving side, and then I realized, okay, the only reason why I keep staying on the receiving side, receiving end of this money control games, receiving end of other people telling what to do, even though I don't agree with them, is because fundamentally, I don't believe that I have the ability to make my own money. Right? That's the only reason I would continue being subject to other people's control of money. You probably also had this experience of feeling like this donor shouldn't be asking to do things this way. But then because they give you the money, you just feel compliant and doing exactly as they say and writing all the justifications in the world possible for them to even deviate a little. And that type of way of supporting others, or that type of way of working, is what kills the spirit and joy and passion of working in the humanitarian sector. Right? It's exactly because of that control element. And the problem, unfortunately, currently is, especially with the funding crisis, I feel like we're making it to a level of addiction, meaning like the way that I'm imagining having this visualization of being this addicts who are desperate for money, desperate for people giving the money so that we can continue doing the things that we actually love doing, but because they're the one giving the money, they're the controlling how it should be spent. Therefore, we're then trying to juggle a lot of different elements of how to please them and also how to please what is right, and then feeling so frustrated in between that you just feel like, is it even like worth doing it, right? Is it like, I don't know, at some point I had this feeling it's just not worth doing it. It's not worth doing it this way, because if the donors could keep controlling, and worse, not even controlling the way how you're doing it, because I think we're so used to by now doing it the way that they ask us to do, But we are so frustrated by hypocrisies, where double standards of when we are able to help this type of people or this countries or this conflicts and wars, but not others. And when you are constantly in this frustrations and disappointments of how money is being used to either promote political agendas or promote some government officials' agendas over anything else, when you keep seeing these injustices, then you just keep feeling like it's just not worth it. And that's when the passion and dedication and loyalty to the cause, to the organization that you once loved, that you once adored, and it was like the biggest dream come true. You wanted to be part of it, and then once you are part of it and you are living the dream, and then you start seeing all of these realities, and you're like, oh my God, it's too hard. Not only it's too hard, keep witnessing injustices and keep witnessing suffering, right? But it's also too hard because you are the one who kept being on the receiving end of how other people keep controlling that money, and you keep doing things and obeying, and at the same time feeling like you are betraying yourself, you are betraying your integrity, you are betraying your even conversation with the person you're serving. And when that keeps happening so often, then at some point either you just give up, right, and you say, no, it's too hard, too not worth it, and I just want to do something else. And I think that was really my case. But then there are also people who feel like they can't really leave that place because their whole family depends on this money, their whole family depends on the salary, and therefore they just feel they need to do the bare minimum and shut off their feelings and suppress their feelings and just keep showing up without really being with wholehearted passion and all of this. Or there are people who then say, okay, I want to now control my own, like I want to control and be part of the game and start getting into the politics and all of this. And again, my purpose of really describing these in details and talking about what I see the money is being used for and how it is being used for, I just wanted to share more the perspective of the people like myself who kept being on the receiving end of things. Right? When we kept being on the receiving end of, because of that $2,000 salary, because of that $5,000 salary, because of that $10,000 per month salary, we feel like we have to do most of what we hate doing. And then we do it for 20, 30 years. And then by the time we're in retirement, feeling so exhausted and so hating life that it just feels like I don't even enjoy my money that I have earned. And I'm hoping that this message will land with people who say, okay, what is the alternative? Right? If we don't treat money as something that is addictive, and by addictive I mean when we become so dependent, fully dependent on it, meaning that whoever gives us this money, we then keep doing things the way they want to. If we don't want to be in that situation anymore, if we don't want to be on the receiving end of the control anymore, if we don't want to be constantly forcing ourselves to do things that is against our spirit, our like soul, then what is the alternative, right? And that's really what I was thinking about, how I have gotten to understand what is my way of coming out of that control situation. And my way of coming out of that control situation was, okay, if I keep fearing making the money side things work, I will continue being in that control situation. This is just the how reality is that I have experienced over and over again, right? When I was in my family growing up, because my father controlled everything because he was the one making the money and he used the money to control everyone else's behavior, I hated every part of that controlling life. But at the same time, I had no clue what the alternative was except escaping it, right? And of course, by at that time, I was very small to even grasp that I could do something with it. But then when I went to work for UN, I realized that the same pattern that I was subjecting myself to, only this time it wasn't my father, it was UN, right? And I was allowing the UN treat me the same way that my father was treating me. Only now I was an adult and I needed to start thinking about, is this how I want to continue my life? And then when I realized that I don't, the alternative, then I started realizing, okay, the alternative is to figure out what to do with that fear, right? Fear of not being able to make my own money work or my own money doing something else that I want to do. And it just breaks my heart to see so many humanitarians are continuing on the receiving end of this money control games, money like leverage games, money, use money to seek power and to make everyone compliant to whatever they're doing, keep being on the receiving end simply because we haven't figured out how to deal with our fear, essentially. And the only way that I have been able to figure this out is by learning how to deal with that fear and learning how to replicate my own money, doing what I love. This was the only way that I could get out of that control for the rest of my life. And this is the part that I think many people know it by now. I can feel that many people are thinking about it, even discussing it or even reflecting on it. But the part that I see that many people are lacking is actually doing something with it. Because until we do something with that fear, until we actually go and pursue whatever it is that we want to pursue and see how this works in practice, in the real market, in the real world, there is no point continuing thinking about it, right? Because if we're still in the receiving end of that control, and we just keep doing things the way that we have always or up until now, then no matter how much we thought about it, no matter how much we know about it, no matter how much we think is the right thing to do, unless we do it, nothing changes. So my solution to you getting out of this money addiction, meaning constantly doing things because of money, because money represents safety and stability, because you feel like you can't live without it, because you feel you cannot really make things work on your own or in another setting. That for me feels like money addiction, meaning we replace all of our life solutions with this. And in order to get out of it, we need to be able to have that freedom from that fear to say, okay, how am I going to make this work on my own or in another setting? And how will that look like? And let me go and actually do that while being scared, while having a lot of questions, but at the same time knowing that you are the one who can trust yourself. And if you don't practice that muscle of trust, that fear will never go away. And if you don't practice the muscle of actually implementing the things that you said, that fear will keep screaming even more. And this is from my own experience, right? So this is how I have been able to figure out how to deal with my fear by increasing my trust in myself, and how to do the things that I love and make it and replicate my salary by doing it. That is how I have been able to get out of that control situation. And my hope is that when you hear me talk about from this perspective, you start seeing also that your life, probably like my life for most of 30s, was controlled by someone else or an entity, with the goal of controlling my behavior, my expressions, my principles, my way of living, my way of looking at what is right and what is wrong. And the freedom that you would like to have is on the side of getting out of that control. And getting out of that control happens, the way I see it, in stages of figuring out what to do with the fear, then figuring out what is it that you want to do and how to make the money side of things work, by trusting yourself and your abilities that you can do this. And I would like to support you in this. So if this is you and you feel like, okay, enough is enough, I need to do something with it, I no longer want to be under the control of those who keep using money in ways that I don't agree with, then you need to figure out a way to do it on your own. And I would love to help you do that. So if you would like to work with me on this, join my Transitioning Humanitarians community, where we work exactly on this topic. How to get yourself out of the addictive behaviors of control by other people and start doing things in your own way. Okay, my dears, have a beautiful week. I'll talk to you